Here we go. You've got questions. I've got answers. And this is a specific one question or one person asking some questions, and then a reply to another post that I did to Congressman Scott Desjardins on his Facebook. So you can find this kind of string on there. That being said, let's get into it. Just like we do, I will read the kind of the questions here, and then we'll get into it. I'm going to address this in two different sections, and it's going to be in this video. So just kind of upfront, this one may get a little bit long, but I think it's worth it. Stick around to part number two, because that's where it's going to get fun. So this is coming to us from Jeff Hutchison, and he says, Tom Davis for Congress. And now let me back up. So he initially it kind of just came at me super negative, and I just said, to ask some questions is kind of the rundown of it. Like I said, you can go to to Congressman Desjardins' Facebook page and kind of see the string. But here's where we get to. He decides to ask some questions. So here we go. Okay, DC versus Keller is pretty clear about the Second Amendment. We have the constitutional right to regulate guns and the right to own guns too. You want to repeal the Firearms Act. So why do you think convicted murderers or felons and those who are a danger to themselves and others have a right to own guns legally? Why do you want to remove our constitutional right to regulate guns? So let's back up, and I believe maybe that was a typo, but is DC versus Heller is, I believe, what the reference was. And there is nothing in the Constitution that lays out saying we have the right to regulate guns. In fact, I'm pretty sure it says something about shall not be infringed, or something along those lines. And if we're going to say that the Constitution or the Supreme Court is the end all beat all of what is constitutional, I don't think we fully grasp what's going on. And I will point to the Dred Scott decision. Was that one? Did they get that one right? So, and even in reading through the DC versus Heller, um, yeah, they don't. There's nothing constitutional about regulating guns. Now, let's frame this a little bit differently, because we can come together, I think, on some things. So first of all, let's put it into context, and we're talking about law-abiding, productive citizens. So how is it that we think we should, or why should we regulate me as a law-abiding citizen, productive member of the society? Why are we going to take away a tool that I have that serves two purposes? The first purpose is as a deterrent against our government becoming tyrannical. And then two, as a tool that I can use for my own personal defense. How does that make anybody safer if you're going to take my tools away for those two things? The answer is it doesn't. So instead of trying to minority report some things for this illusion of safety, how about we actually impose the punishments that we've put on the books? So let's frame it like that. Now, if we want to restrict some rights of those that are not participating, are not being productive, and have shown a propensity towards violence, because again, we in some context about this, as we go to the next one, for convicted murderers or felons. Okay, that's fair enough. But impose the punishment. And now for felons, and outside of that, the state's putting their punishments on this. Once you've done the crime, you've done the time. Why should you not be able to regain those rights? Now, if you've got again a steady background of doing murders, And again, I would say violent felons, because there's other felonies out there that have nothing to do with violence. So are we just going to arbitrarily say, hey, you can't have a gun because you did this other thing that has nothing to do with it? So, but can we take this subset of people and restrict them? Sure. But again, it comes back to what's and that punishment should fit, and we should separate them from our society. And we used to do this as we talk about the danger to themselves and others. We used to have places we put people that were a danger to themselves and others, but we got to a point where everything was touchy feely and it was not okay to put people into, and whatever word, insane asylums, um, mental health wards, whatever term you want to use. But now we don't do this. We just release them out into the street to do their thing. So, maybe we should rethink that line of dealing with folks that are a danger to themselves and others. But again, come back to, Minority Report. How is restricting my access to something uh, going to make anybody safer? So there is that. And then let's take a look at what we're trying to do here, right? The whole point of this is the gun violence. What are we going to do to end gun violence? Well, let's say we all agreed, all right, let's get rid of all the guns. Poof, all the guns are gone. Did we solve the violence problem? I think not. Are we still going to have violence? Yes, as a matter of fact, we are. And so, and I'm going to I got these stacked up, so we'll come back around on that. It'll get answered. But so as I go through some of this stuff I pulled up, and I think was this in here? Nobody's coming after my guns. Or was that the other one? So yeah, at any point, somebody, one of the ones talking about they're not coming after my guns. Yes, as a matter of fact, there are. And this comes to us from thegunzone.com. And there's other places you can start looking this stuff up. But according to this, and I've heard this other places, there are around 300 federal laws and regulations related to firearms, covering topics such as background checks, age restrictions, and prohibited persons. So I would ask back, what law would you propose that does not infringe on my rights, but ends gun violence? And again, take out the gun, what do we still have? The violence. So maybe we should start addressing the violence. So, and then that being said, now any of this loss of life is tragic, especially violent means. However, but at the end of the day, that's how we all end up. So, what can we do? We can extend our lives possibly through some things, but let's run some numbers. So, and this is off of this is the FBI. They're off of their website and their information and the stats that they get reported or they collect as agencies report to them. They compile it, and this one is 2019. This is what I came up with, and they have 5 years worth. So from 2015 to 2019, and you can pull this up. And I averaged some of this stuff out as we talk about it. So the total average of homicides in those 5 years, the average was 14,556. Total firearms was 10,251. And again, and there's a breakdown in here of where those lie. So I'm not trying to mislead anybody in data and how I looked at this stuff. So that's just total firearms. And what do we always want to regulate? It's our scary AR-15, right? Our semi-automatic, big scary military weapon. I would encourage you to go look at this data. And if you're going to do this, at least know what you're talking about and where the bulk of the problem lies. And again, the problem is not the gun. The problem is our human condition and behaviors. So, but again, total murders average in those 5 years, 10,251. and I'm just going to pick a number because they're all pretty close. Actually, 2017 was the high for handguns, and this is handguns at is it 7,062. So it's going to be the other one right around 6,000. Like I said, I didn't average that out, but we can go high and just and pick a number, call it 6,500. Will probably be okay as an average. So of those 10,251 average, roughly 6,500. And now the rifles. This is all rifles, all rifles. There's no differentiation in here between bolt action, between semi-automatic, or any of this other stuff. But the high for rifles was 369. It looks like that was the high of those 5 years. So again, how many deaths are, gun deaths are attributed to rifles, but that's what we always hear about, right? Um, so and again, go look at the stats. Now let's talk about something else. So, and I put these all together. So this is combined, an average for those 5 years, and these were homicides, knives or cutting instruments, blunt objects, clubs, hammers, etc., and personal weapons, which they describe as hands, fists, feet, etc., 886 per year on average over those 5 years. So now look at some of the other countries that have gotten rid of their guns. They still have the violence. They still have the violence. So that the guns, an inanimate object, is not the problem. So if we're talking about taking away a thing to save lives, let's talk about something else. And this is coming from Forbes.com. And where's my number? So this is an average 251,000 fatalities annual. 251,000 fatalities annually based on this one thing. And this one thing is, and actually it is the third most common cause of death in the States. And this is according to a Johns Hopkins medical study, as cited by Forbes.com, medical malpractice. So if we just completely stopped our Western medicine, 251,000. So are we trying to save lives, or are we trying to take away a means to resist tyranny and defend myself? Because the other side of the guns, and something that is not or not reported, and also for this something I'm not going to talk about, is how many lives are saved. How many lives are saved every year because of Western medicine? A little bit of a different discussion. Is it worth it? But same thing. How many lives are saved because of guns? It is more than that 10,000 average that are of homicides. So let's talk about another item. In this item, and this is 2020 annual data, and I don't. And this was it'd probably stay about the same. These numbers don't fluctuate widely, but 38,824 lives lost in 2020. Crashes, vehicle crashes. So why are we not hammering away talking about, let's get rid of our vehicles? Let's get rid of our vehicles because we can save 38,000 lives. So they are coming after the guns, and there is no reason for it. So that is just a surface dive into some of our data. And if we reasonably want to talk about this stuff, we need to pull the emotion out of it and discuss it as rational people, because there is an agenda behind this, and it is an emotional issue, and I can certainly understand those that have lost loved ones to gun violence, but how about just violence in general? And maybe let's address that problem and some things we have going on versus let's go after the tool. So, and again, so medical malpractice, who do we go after there? Are we going after doctors? Take all the scalpels away? Take No, we don't. Vehicles. I mean, we tried prohibition, right? Because there was a breakdown in there as far as how alcohol related versus just all traffic data. Uh, so that but we went through prohibition, right? The government created a problem. Somebody, if you know a little bit of the history on that, some do-gooders overdoing good. I understand the placement of it, that we want to help people, but that's not your job. That is not your job to have the government impose your will on somebody else. So they are coming after the guns, and that there is that. So yes, I do believe we should repeal the 1934 National Firearms Act and the 1968 Gun Control Act. And if you look at a little bit of the history of that 1934 Act, one, it has to do with taxes. And then now the ATF is just completely abusing the mess out of that regulation. But it actually went to the Supreme Court and it stayed in effect because the defendants, if you will, in that failed to show up. So look into that a little bit if you care. So now we get into the fun bit. And this is again from Jeff Hutchison on Facebook. And this is another reply I did. So Congressman Desjardins came up on the net on Facebook, letting us know that that all our Tennessee delegation sent a harshly worded letter to Alejandro Mayorkas because of all the rampant illegal aliens running around and the crimes that they are committing. And my response to that was, where is the harshly worded letter to the Speaker of the House and the other Republicans that voted to send taxpayer dollars to Ukraine? And I've done other videos on this. You can go back and check those out. I'll touch on it here a little bit, but this is some of the out of control spending that we have. Ukraine is not going to win that unless they get some additional troops on the ground. So American, NATO, whoever, and I'm not super excited about sending Americans into Ukraine for something that really doesn't concern us, especially when we're doing this out of emergency funding and we're $35 trillion in debt now. It has to stop. So, and then on the other side of this, if Russia was gonna take care of that, they would have done it by now. So, is Russia a threat? No, but we are making them into a threat. If they would have had the capacity to already secure Ukraine and complete that, they would have. But what we are doing is pushing them to partner up with China. It's already happening. So we are going to create this problem, and then we're going to wind up with American soldiers on the ground. We have history of this. So look into Vietnam, and even our Afghanistan. Look into any of it. This is how we're doing business now. Is we throw money at it and then wind up putting soldiers on the ground, feeding our military industrial complex. It needs to stop. So there is that now. So in response to that comment, where my question of asking where's our harshly lettered word to those Republicans, and then our Speaker of the House, and then Jeff Hutchison tells me Tom Davis for Congress, and he says, "Oh, an American who supports Putin. Yeah, now I really got no reason to vote for a corrupt individual like you. You probably got a brown shirt in the closet." So I find it interesting. And now, and let me, did we talk about that? Anyway, Jeff had started out on the attack to begin with. And, I asked the question, let's, vet me as a candidate. That's fine. You didn't, and this is, I hadn't responded to that other one yet, but let's talk about this and how we just kind of jump in and assume some things. So how is it I guess we understand or we think that because I am pro us being fiscally responsible within the Congress, within our nation and our tax dollars, and having an understanding that they're going to a wasteful cause and it's out of deficit. Now all of a sudden I'm supporting Putin. That to me is a little baffling. Um, I can I don't support Putin. I'll let you know. But again, having an understanding that that capacity is not there for him to actually, push past Ukraine if he's got eyes on it. He probably doesn't have the longevity maybe in his life to build back up because he has put a lot of resources into Ukraine already and has cost the Russian people in lives and dollars. So there is that, and even with that, Putin has offered to come to the table, peace talks, but the Biden regime is not open to that because again, Ukraine is a money laundering service is what it is. So there you go. Consider that. But to think that I have to support Putin because I'm against this fiscal irresponsibility, that's very interesting. And then I, the brown shirt in the closet, that's interesting in that I'm going out on a limb. Maybe Jeff doesn't understand, or maybe I don't. We can figure it out with some comments or whatever. But the brown shirts being a reference to Nazisms or to Nazis in World War II. Um, yeah, I think I don't know what you would necessarily want to compare me to, but that's kind of a standard of anybody's is if you disagree with them that they're all of a sudden a Nazi. No, I am not. And if you understand what Nazi actually stands for, the translation is National Socialist. So, I don't know, maybe because of that, they were socialist. Russia's, kind of a socialist thing, whatever. But the reference, I think, is maybe not appropriate. And like I said, let's go back and process this. I don't know where I've ever said I support Russia and Putin. And in fact, I did another video on on that as well. So, um, but again, if I and Jeff, if you're listening to this, drop a comment for me or don't. I probably you are not going to vote for me anyway. So, but it lets everyone know, gets it out there, and provides me some material for content, and there is that. So, all right, I think I've gone on long enough as I see my clock ticking away at 23 minutes now. If you have made it all the way through, I appreciate you. Any comments you want to drop down there? If I need to clarify some stuff, you got additional questions. This video will be on Facebook. It will be on YouTube also. Too long, I think, for the Instagram, but anyway, there it'll get uploaded here. And yeah, like I said, and Jeff, if you want to ask more questions, that's fine. I will entertain those. But running around the how helpful is it for you? Come out and meet me. And we can talk face to face and maybe discuss the issues if you would care to, or what I'm saying. You can, keep sitting there and do your keyboard warrior thing. That's all fine. You go ahead and do you. I will be actively participating in the process in a manner that I see as productive and fit, and it's part of the deal. So there we go. Everybody else, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your consideration. Do the things with the likes and the comments, and let's keep it going. I appreciate your time. And until the next one, we will see you out on the trail. This will defend.